Have you ever tried to pray and ended up tongue-tied? I'll share a story of a paranormal investigation in which that happened to me. Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicolle, and I'm grateful you're here. The two big ideas behind the Peep Podcast are to show that the paranormal is more normal than most people think, and to connect the science to the sci, including ESP, psychokinesis, and intuition. In this episode, you'll hear the story of a home my team investigated in Wake Forest, North Carolina. But first, I have a quick favor to ask, and for once it's not book-related. If you have a personal paranormal story to share, whether it's about a haunting, UFO, UAP, Bigfoot, or any other cryptid, please consider sharing it on this podcast. You can be as anonymous as you'd like, or you can share as much information as you'd like. It just needs to be true and first person, meaning it happened to you. When you're ready, reach out to me through the contact form at peeppodcast.com. I don't check Facebook for messages since 99.9% of the time it's people or bots trying to sell me something I don't need. So that means you really do need to use the form on my website to reach me. On a different note, I'd like to thank Be a Lighthouse for the ultra nice 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Reading that made my week. Thank you. One last thing. I'm going to attend Author Nation, the world's largest author conference, during the first week of November in Las Vegas. So there will not be a podcast episode that week. I have a cool interview lined up for the following regular episode date, which would be November 19th. So don't worry, I will be back. Now back to this episode's topic, the haunting of a cozy little home in Wake Forest, North Carolina. I'm sharing this story because we're coming up on Halloween, and this investigation has been on my mind again. In episode 108, I talked about paranormal experiences that influenced my writing, and this one was a huge influence on the dark season. If you've read that one, you'll recognize what I mean. I wrote this story as Chapter 14, The Cozy Home in Wake Forest, in my book, Please Don't Call Me Psychic, Stories from My Paranormal Life. It contains some of my more interesting experiences and lessons learned from a decade of paranormal investigations with the National Society of Paranormal Investigation and Research, INSPIRE for short. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider buying that book or checking it out at the Wake County Public Libraries if you're a local. Let's get into the story. Geographical location. Wake Forest, North Carolina. Location type, private residence. Claims of activity. Unusual noises heard in other rooms while in the living room. Red laser-like lights floating 3 to 4 feet off the floor. And a television with a mind of its own. Lessons learned. Just because I don't feel a presence during an initial walkthrough doesn't mean there's nothing there. EVP available online? No. The daughter of an elderly lady contacted us and asked us to come visit her mother in one of the older neighborhoods in Wake Forest. She was experiencing strange incidents in her home on a regular basis and just wanted someone to get to the bottom of the cause. So George and I drove there early one evening to meet with the mother and daughter. The house was relatively small and simple. When you walk inside, there was a living room and a door straight in front that led to the eating kitchen. There was a bedroom to the right of the living room and another one off to the left of the kitchen. The walkthrough didn't take long, and I didn't feel anything that led me to believe there was a spirit active at that moment. When we sat down with the ladies in the living room to chat about what was happening there, I was shocked at the story the older woman told. Sadly, what shocked me wasn't the occurrences in the house, which I'll explain in a moment, but it was the reaction of her pastor when she asked for help. He kicked her out of the church. Prepare for a short rant. I have a serious problem with people who supposedly vow to help all in their care and under their leadership who have this attitude. In this case, an elderly woman who lived alone asked for help because things that were happening inside her home were starting to scare her. She couldn't explain them, and she wanted someone to come, check the house, and bless it. She wanted assistance so that she could feel safe and comfortable in a place that should be a sanctuary for her. And they kicked her out of the church for it. Apparently, there are some denominations that believe if you are being haunted, you must have brought it upon yourself by sin or consorting with demonic influences. That's total crap. I have met so many sweet, compassionate, God-loving people who have had unexplained things happen in their homes. They did nothing to bring it on themselves. They just wanted it to go away or stop. Blaming them for their situation would be like blaming them for a large branch falling in their yard during a storm. It's ridiculous. Pastors are supposed to be compassionate and helpful. They are supposed to be guides in the spiritual journey of their flock. They aren't supposed to banish a sheep who's being stalked by a wolf. How is that helpful? How does that save souls? My guess is that those people are acting out of their own fears and not acting out of any truly biblical commandment. I would never attend a church where the people in charge had attitudes like that. I would never trust that they had my own soul's best interest at heart. Now, back to the story. The lady was experiencing odd noises inside her home that were new to her. She would be sitting in the living room and hear things moving in the bedroom or the kitchen when nobody else was there, but nothing was ever out of place when she checked. She would see red lights floating through the house at about chest level to a standing average height adult, which she compared to laser lights. They didn't seem to have any specific source and happened in every room. Her television would turn itself off and on, and even change the channels on its own. To a degree, she thought one of her neighbors might be playing tricks on her. With respect to the TV, George and I thought it might be possible. The only problem was that the other rooms around her should have been out of range for a normal remote control, and she often kept the curtains closed. I was having a hard time being convinced that there was anything truly paranormal going on. But as we were wrapping up our conversation with the ladies, something happened to change my mind. George and I were sitting on a couch with its back against the large front window of the house. The ladies were on a couch facing us across a nice glass coffee table. To my right was the front bedroom, and clearly on the edge of my vision, near the doorway to that bedroom, a dark shadow, about the height of a child or a very short adult, passed by that doorway. I blinked a couple of times and it was gone. I noted that it was moving from the right side of the doorway to the far side toward the kitchen. Then I took a moment to consider whether any cars had passed at that moment. No, there had been no cars. I looked through the window behind us as casually as I could. No one was on the street. George and I told her that if she would like, we would bring a few members of our team back for an evening investigation. We thanked them for inviting us over and bid them a good evening. Then we left. As we were backing out of the driveway, George asked me what I thought, and I told him that my mind had been changed in the last 5 minutes of our visit. Then I told him what I saw. There was definitely something worth investigating going on in that home. Less than a week later, I returned with an all-female team, only because George couldn't make it that night. Dee, Farah, Holly, and I arrived around dusk. We greeted the woman and made the appropriate introductions. Then her daughter took her away for the evening, and we were asked to lock the house when we left. We did EVP sessions in each room and witnessed the odd noises the homeowner had mentioned. It really did sound like there was someone moving things in other rooms. We also noticed that in the front bedroom, there were a few moments when the room seemed to get even darker than it had been without the lights on, but eventually the deep darkness seemed to subside. By the time we got to the back bedroom, the house had a very creepy feel, and I felt the need to pray, which is not my normal reaction or habit during an investigation. Something in that house was really bothering me. So I told the ladies that I wanted to pray a prayer for protection that I said daily and hoped it would boot whatever was present out of the home. Then I started to say the prayer to St. Michael, which I prayed almost daily back then. I still pray it several times a week. Just a few lines in, the words got jumbled in my head and I couldn't recite it. That made no sense. I said it every day. How could I forget the words? I apologized and started again. I got a little farther into it and froze again. Something was keeping me from finishing, and I said as much out loud. Then I ad-libbed my way through it because the intent of the prayer is more important than the exact words. And temporary amnesia with respect to a formal prayer wasn't going to stop me. I trusted that St. Michael would listen and get the gist of it. We locked up and left after that. I seem to recall that George heard from the daughter one more time and things seemed quieter in the house. I hoped that my not quite perfect prayer was enough to evict the odd little visitor from the home and that the lady would find peace there again. Thank you for listening. Remember, if you want to share your own personal paranormal experiences of any type, use the contact form at peeppodcast.com to get in touch. You can be as anonymous as you like, or you can let your paranormal freak flag fly and share your name. Either way, I'm happy to hear from you. Sharing your stories helps people realize that the paranormal is much more normal than they think. That's PEEPpodcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. While you're there, subscribe to my newsletter to keep up with the podcast and all my creative and energetic endeavors. I usually only email it once a month, unless I have a special event you should know about. You'll receive briefs on recent episodes, information on any upcoming appearances, like the virtual one that I just did on October 20th, plus some occasional fun extras. If you enjoy the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app. Share it with friends and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Ratings, reviews, and shares help platforms like Apple Podcast and Spotify know it's worthy of surfacing to new listeners. And as we build our audience, we have more chances to hear their paranormal stories. A huge thank you to everyone who has given the show some love. You're helping it grow. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, or any other way, I absolutely appreciate your being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.
Wow.